The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, sending crystal shards across my feet like tiny daggers. I stood there frozen as my mother-in-law's voice cut through the silence. "Well, that's just perfect. Can't even hold a glass properly." "My name is Rachel, and I should have known that hosting Sunday dinner for the Montgomery family would end in disaster. It always did." "It's fine, Margaret. I'll clean it up." I bent down, my hands shaking as I picked up the larger pieces. Blood welled up from a small cut on my palm. "Leave it," Bryson said, from across the dining room, not even looking up from his phone. "The help can deal with it tomorrow." The help. That's what I was to them, even after 3 years of marriage. I pressed my palm against my dress, trying to stop the bleeding. "Honestly, Rachel," Margaret continued, her voice dripping with false concern, "you seem so nervous lately. Is everything all right?" I forced a smile. "Just tired. It's been a long week." "Teaching must be so exhausting," Chloe chimed in, her tone suggesting teaching was equivalent to finger painting. "All those little children demanding attention." "I don't teach anymore," I said quietly. "I haven't since you married into money," Talon interrupted with a laugh. "Lucky you." The room fell silent except for the tick of the grandfather clock. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for a reaction. This was their favourite game. Push Rachel until she breaks. "How's Gilbert doing?" I asked, desperate to change the subject. Margaret's expression shifted, her mask of superiority cracking slightly. "Not well. The doctors say... Well, they say we should prepare ourselves." Bryson finally looked up from his phone. "Dad's tough. He'll pull through." "He's dying, Bryson." Sage spoke for the first time all evening, her voice flat. "We all know it. Stop pretending otherwise." "Sage!" Margaret snapped. "That's enough." "What? It's true, and we all know what happens when he dies." Sage's eyes found mine across the table. "Don't we, Rachel?" I didn't understand what she meant, but something cold settled in my stomach. The way they were all looking at me now, like vultures circling prey. "I think," Margaret said slowly, "that we need to have a family discussion. About the future. About protecting what's ours." "What do you mean?" I asked. Bryson reached over and took my uninjured hand. To anyone watching it would look loving, but his grip was too tight, his thumb pressing against my pulse point. "Nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart. Just family business." Family business. I'd heard that phrase 100 times since marrying Bryson. It always meant the same thing. I wasn't really family. "Where's Stella tonight?" I asked. "She usually joins us for Sunday dinner." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Margaret's jaw tightened. "Grandmother is resting," Chloe said. "She's been tired lately." That was strange. Stella Montgomery might be 81, but she was sharper than everyone else in this room combined. She never missed Sunday dinner. Never. "Maybe I should check on her," I offered. "No." The word came out harsher than Bryson intended. He cleared his throat. "I mean, she specifically asked not to be disturbed." I nodded, but something wasn't right. Stella had always been kind to me, the only one in this family who treated me like a human being instead of an inconvenience. "Well," Margaret said, standing up, "I think we should call it a night. Rachel, dear, thank you for dinner, though next time perhaps something less ambitious." The roast had been perfect. The vegetables were cooked exactly right. The only thing that had gone wrong was the champagne glass, and that was because my hands were shaking from their constant needling. They filed out one by one, leaving me alone with the mess. I was on my hands and knees, picking up the last of the crystal, when I heard Bryson's voice from the hallway. "It'll all work out after tomorrow." "Are you sure she'll sign it?" That was Margaret. "She'll sign it. She doesn't have a choice." My blood turned to ice. Sign what? What were they planning? I stayed crouched on the floor until I heard the front door close, until the sound of car engines faded into the night. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. Whatever they had planned for tomorrow, I had a feeling my life was about to change forever, and not in a good way. The knock on the door came at exactly 9 a.m. I'd been awake since 5, pacing the kitchen, drinking coffee that tasted like ash. When I opened the door, Margaret stood there with Bryson, both dressed like they were heading to a board meeting. "We need to talk," Margaret said, pushing past me into the house. "Good morning to you too," I muttered, closing the door. Bryson kissed my cheek, but it felt cold, performative. "Morning, babe. Hope you don't mind us stopping by. Actually, I do mind. I have errands to run today." "This won't take long," Margaret said, settling herself on my couch like she owned it. Which, technically, she kind of did. The house was in Bryson's name. Bryson sat beside his mother, and I noticed he was carrying a leather folder. My stomach clenched. "What's this about?" I asked, remaining standing. Margaret smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just some paperwork, nothing dramatic." "What kind of paperwork?" Bryson opened the folder and pulled out a thick document. "It's a postnuptial agreement, just a formality, really." The words hit me like a slap. "A what?" "Given Dad's condition," Margaret said, "we need to make sure everything is clear, legally speaking." I stared at the papers in Bryson's hands. "You want me to sign away my rights to your father's inheritance?" "Not sign away," Bryson said quickly. "Just clarify. You know how complicated these things can get. I was never expecting anything from Gilbert's estate." "Of course not," Margaret said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "But lawyers, you know how they are. They want everything spelled out." I sat down across from them, my legs suddenly weak. "What exactly does it say?" Bryson flipped through the pages. "Standard stuff. In the event of Gilbert's death, his assets remain within the bloodline. You'd still be provided for, obviously." "Provided for?" "A monthly allowance," Margaret said. "Very generous, considering." "Considering what?" The mask slipped from Margaret's face for just a moment. "Considering you were a public school teacher when my son met you. Considering you've never contributed a dime to this family's wealth." "I contributed 3 years of my life." "Did you?" Margaret leaned forward. "Because from where I sit, it looks like you've been living quite comfortably off our generosity." My hands clenched into fists. "I worked until you convinced Bryson I should quit. I had my own apartment, my own car, my own life." "And now you have so much more," Bryson said. "This house, the credit cards, the lifestyle. The agreement just protects that. By making sure I can never claim more than you think I deserve." "Rachel," Margaret's voice turned sharp, "let's not pretend this is about love. You saw an opportunity and you took it. There's no shame in that. But now we need to be realistic about expectations." I looked at my husband. "Is that what you think? That I married you for money?" Bryson wouldn't meet my eyes. I think this is just smart business." "Smart business," I repeated the words slowly. "Our marriage is smart business." "Don't be dramatic," Margaret said. "You're still married. You're still family. This just ensures everyone knows their place." Their place. My place was apparently at the bottom of the family hierarchy, grateful for whatever scraps they threw me. "What if I don't sign it?" The temperature in the room dropped. Margaret and Bryson exchanged a look. "Why wouldn't you sign it?" Bryson asked. "Unless you were planning something." "Planning what?" "I don't know," Margaret said. "But refusing to sign would certainly raise questions about your motives." The threat was clear. Sign this or we'll make your life hell. "I need time to think about it." "There's nothing to think about," Margaret stood up. "It's a formality, Rachel, unless you have something to hide." I looked at the document again, at the pages and pages of legal language designed to keep me in my place, to make sure I knew I was an outsider, a charity case, someone who should be grateful for whatever they decided to give me. "Fine," I said. "I'll sign it." Margaret smiled triumphantly. Bryson looked relieved. I took the pen and signed my name at the bottom of each page, my hand steady despite the rage burning in my chest. They watched me like hawks, making sure I didn't miss a single signature line. "There," I said, handing the papers back. "Happy now?" "Very," Margaret said, tucking the document into her purse. "I knew you'd be reasonable." After they left, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at my phone. There was a text message from an unknown number sent just minutes ago. "Tomorrow, 8 p.m, my study. Come alone. S. Stella." I smiled for the first time in hours. The Montgomery estate looked different at night, more imposing, more like the fortress it really was. I parked at the back entrance like Stella had instructed, and used the key she'd given me months ago, a key I'd never told Bryson about. The house was dark except for a single light in Stella's study. My footsteps echoed on the marble floors as I made my way through hallways lined with portraits of dead Montgomerys, all of them seeming to judge me as I passed. I knocked softly on the study door. "Come in, dear." Stella sat behind her massive oak desk, looking frailer than I'd ever seen her, but her eyes were sharp as ever, and she was smiling. "You came," she said. "Of course I came. Your text was cryptic. Sit down, Rachel. We have much to discuss." I took the chair across from her desk, the same chair where I'd sat countless times over the past 3 years, drinking tea and talking about books, about life, about everything, except the family that connected us. "They made you sign it, didn't they?" she asked. My stomach dropped. "Sign what?" "The postnuptial agreement. Margaret's been planning it for weeks. How did you—" "I know everything that happens in this family, dear, even when they think I don't." She opened a drawer and pulled out a manila folder. "Especially when they think I don't. Stella, I don't understand. My son is dying, Rachel. Gilbert has maybe days left, and my daughter-in-law and grandson are circling like vultures, making sure they get every penny they think they deserve." She stood up slowly and walked to the window overlooking the gardens. "Do you know what Margaret said to me last week? She said it was time for me to step back and let the younger generation handle the family finances." "She wants you to retire," Stella laughed, but there was no humour in it. "She wants me to die, dear, or at least become irrelevant. She's been waiting 30 years for Gilbert and me to get out of her way." "But you're not going anywhere." "No, I'm not." She turned back to me. "Which is why I asked you here." She returned to her desk and opened the folder. Inside were legal documents, bank statements, and what looked like a will. "I've been watching this family tear itself apart for decades, watching them scheme and plot and betray each other for money. But you're different. Stella, let me finish." Her voice was firm. "You married Bryson for love. Foolish, perhaps, but genuine. You've never asked me for anything, never tried to manipulate me or curry favour. You visit me because you enjoy my company, not because you want something from me." She pulled out a document and placed it in front of me. "This is my will, Rachel. My real will, not the one Margaret thinks exists." I stared at the papers, afraid to touch them. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I'm leaving everything to you." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "The business, the properties, the investments, all of it, every penny." "Stella, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." I stood up, backing away from the desk. "This is insane. I'm not even blood family." "Blood family?" Stella's voice turned bitter. "My blood family forced you to sign away your rights to Gilbert's estate today. My blood family has spent years treating you like a servant in your own home. My blood family would sell their souls for $1. "But Bryson is weak. He's let his mother poison him against you from day one. He stood by and watched them humiliate you today, didn't he?" I couldn't deny it. He had. "There's more," Stella continued. "Ellis Ray, my lawyer, has been documenting Margaret and Talon's attempts to access my accounts. They've been forging my signature on documents, trying to transfer assets. They're stealing from you. Trying to. Ellis has been feeding them false information, letting them think they're succeeding while building a case against them. She walked around the desk and took my hands. I don't have long, Rachel. Maybe a few months. I want to know that when I'm gone, everything I've built will go to someone who deserves it, someone who won't destroy it out of greed. This will destroy the family. The family destroyed itself long ago. I'm just making sure the pieces fall where they should. A sound in the hallway made us both freeze, footsteps on marble, trying to be quiet, but not quite succeeding. Stella quickly gathered the documents and shoved them back into the folder. "Take this," she whispered, pressing the folder into my hands. "Hide it. Trust no one except Ellis." The footsteps were getting closer. "Go," she hissed. "Back door, now." I clutched the folder to my chest and headed for the door, but it was too late. The handle turned and Chloe stepped into the room. "Grandmother," she said, her eyes immediately finding me. "What's Rachel doing here?" Stella didn't miss a beat. "She was returning a book I lent her, weren't you, dear?" I held up the folder, praying Chloe couldn't see my hands shaking. "Pride and Prejudice. You said I could borrow it." Chloe's eyes narrowed. "At 9 o'clock at night." "I couldn't sleep," I said. "Thought I'd read for a while." "How considerate of you to return it so quickly." The suspicion in her voice was unmistakable. She knew something was wrong. "Well," I said, backing toward the door, "I should get going. Bryson will wonder where I am." As I left, I could feel Chloe's eyes boring into my back. The folder felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my hands. I had Stella's will. I had the power to destroy them all. The question was, did I have the courage to use it? Gilbert died on a Tuesday morning. The call came at 6:47 a.m., Margaret's voice shaking as she told Bryson the news. I watched my husband's face crumble and, for a moment, I forgot about everything else. This was the man I'd married, the one who used to laugh at my terrible jokes and bring me coffee in bed. "I'm sorry," I whispered, reaching for his hand. He pulled away. "I need to call the funeral home." The next 3 days were a blur of black clothes and forced sympathy. The funeral was held at the biggest church in town, packed with people who'd never spoken to Gilbert but wanted to be seen mourning a Montgomery. I sat in the front pew between Bryson and Sage, watching Margaret play the grieving widow to perfection. She dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, accepting condolences like she was accepting an award. "He was such a good man," she kept saying. "So generous, so loving." The Gilbert I remembered had been kind, especially in those early days of my marriage. He'd defended me once when Margaret made a particularly cruel comment about my background. But that was before the family poison really took hold, before he started looking at me like I was something that had crawled out from under a rock. "Beautiful service," someone whispered behind me. "Yes, though I'm sure the real drama will come later," came the reply. "You know how these wealthy families are when it comes to wills." I felt Bryson tense beside me. Across the aisle, Talon was whispering something to Chloe, both of them glancing in my direction. After the burial, everyone gathered at the Montgomery estate for the reception. I helped serve food and drinks, playing the dutiful daughter-in-law, while the family's friends and business associates offered their condolences. "Rachel, dear," Mrs. Whitmore from the country club cornered me by the buffet table. "How are you holding up? This must be so difficult." "We're managing, thank you." "I'm sure you are, though I imagine things will be different now, with Gilbert gone." The way she said it made my skin crawl, like she knew something I didn't. "Excuse me," I said, stepping away from her. I found Stella in the garden, sitting alone on a bench beneath the old oak tree. She looked exhausted, older than her 81 years. "How are you doing?" I asked, sitting beside her. "I've buried my husband, my eldest son, and now Gilbert. I'm tired, Rachel, so very tired." "I'm sorry," she patted my hand. "He wasn't always like he became, you know. Gilbert was a sweet boy once, before Margaret got her claws into him." "Stella, she's already started, hasn't she? The whispers, the looks. Making sure everyone knows you don't belong." I glanced back at the house where I could see Margaret, holding court on the terrace, surrounded by well-dressed mourners. "She cornered me yesterday," I said. "Asked if I was prepared for the changes ahead." "And what did you tell her?" "That I didn't know what she meant." Stella smiled grimly. "Good. Let them think you're naive. It'll make what comes next easier." "What comes next?" Before she could answer, Bryson appeared on the garden path. "There you are," he said to me. "People are asking for you." "I'll be right there." He hesitated, looking between Stella and me. "Everything okay out here?" "Just two old friends talking," Stella said. "Nothing that concerns you, dear." Something flickered across Bryson's face. Suspicion? Fear? But he just nodded and walked back toward the house. "He's scared," Stella said quietly. "Of what?" "Of losing control. Of you having more power than he thinks you deserve." That evening, after the last guest had left, the family gathered in Gilbert's study. Margaret sat behind his desk like she already owned it, while Bryson and Talon flanked her like bodyguards. Chloe perched on the arm of a chair, and Sage stood by the window looking uncomfortable. "Well," Margaret said, I suppose we should discuss arrangements." "What kind of arrangements?" Sage asked. "The business, the properties, the investments. Someone needs to take charge." "The will reading isn't until next week," I said. Margaret's smile was sharp. "Oh, I think we all know how that will go. Gilbert was very clear about his wishes." "Was he?" Stella's voice cut through the room like a blade. She stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on her cane. "Because I seem to remember him being quite confused these past few months." "Mother," Margaret's voice was strained, "you should be resting." "I've been resting for 3 days. I think that's quite enough." Stella made her way to an empty chair, and I noticed how everyone shifted uncomfortably. Even Margaret looked nervous. "The will reading is scheduled for Friday," Stella continued. "Ellis will be here at 2 o'clock sharp. I suggest you all be present." "Of course we'll be present," Talon said. "We're family." Stella's eyes found mine across the room. "Yes, family." The word hung in the air like a challenge. As everyone filed out, Ellis Ray appeared at my elbow. I hadn't even seen him come in. "Mrs. Montgomery," he said quietly, "might I have a word?" We stepped into the hallway, away from the others. "Are you ready for Friday?" he asked. My mouth went dry. "I don't know if anyone can be ready for something like this. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. Ellis, what if—" "No what ifs, just be there. 2 o'clock. And Rachel." "Yes." "Bring your courage. You're going to need it." Friday arrived like a storm I'd been watching build on the horizon for days. By 1:45 p.m, Stella's study was packed with Montgomerys and their lawyers. The air was thick with expensive perfume and barely contained greed. Margaret sat in the front row like she was attending a coronation, wearing a black Chanel suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Bryson was beside her, checking his phone every 30 seconds. Talon had positioned himself near the door, like he was planning his escape route. Chloe sat with perfect posture, her hands folded in her lap, while Sage fidgeted in the back corner. I took a seat near the window, trying to make myself invisible. My hands were shaking, so I clasped them together in my lap. At exactly 2 o'clock, Ellis Ray entered carrying a leather briefcase. He was followed by 2 other lawyers I didn't recognize and a court stenographer. "Good afternoon, everyone," Ellis said, settling behind Stella's massive desk. "We're here for the reading of Gilbert Montgomery's last will and testament." "Finally," Talon muttered. Ellis opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick document. "Before we begin, I need to clarify something. This will was executed 6 months ago, superseding all previous versions." Margaret nodded approvingly. "Gilbert was very thorough." "Indeed he was." Ellis cleared his throat. "To my wife, Margaret, I leave the sum of $50,000 and my personal effects." The room went dead silent. Margaret's face turned white. "I'm sorry, what?" she said. $50,000, Ellis repeated. "To my son Bryson, I leave the sum of $25,000. To my daughter Chloe, $25,000. To my son Sage, $25,000. That's impossible, Bryson stood up. There has to be more. I'm afraid not. The remainder of Gilbert's estate, approximately $2 million, goes to various charities. Margaret shot to her feet. This is ridiculous. Gilbert had over $20 million in assets. Gilbert had approximately $2 million in assets that were solely his, Ellis said calmly. The rest belongs to someone else. Who? Talon demanded. Ellis smiled. That brings us to the second will we're reading today. My heart stopped beating. The last will and testament of Stella Montgomery. What? Margaret's voice was a shriek. She's not dead. No, but she's chosen to execute her will while she's still alive to see it carried out. It's perfectly legal. Stella appeared in the doorway, moving slowly but with purpose. She made her way to a chair near Ellis's desk, her cane tapping against the marble floor. "Hello, family," she said. "Grandmother, what's going on?" Chloe asked. "Justice," Stella replied simply. Ellis opened a second document. "To my daughter-in-law Margaret, I leave nothing. She has taken enough." Margaret's mouth fell open. "To my grandson Bryson, I leave nothing. He has shown himself to be weak and easily manipulated." Bryson's face went red. "You can't do this. To my granddaughter Chloe, I leave nothing. She has spent years scheming behind my back." "This is insane," Chloe shouted. "To my grandson Talon, I leave nothing. His attempts to forge my signature and steal from me have been well documented." Talon went pale. "We have security footage, dear," Stella said sweetly. Ellis continued reading. "To my grandson Sage, I leave the sum of $1 million, as he is the only one who has never asked me for money or treated me as a means to an end." Sage looked stunned. "Grandmother, The remainder of my estate," Ellis's voice grew stronger, "including all business holdings, properties, investments and liquid assets totaling approximately $47 million, I leave to Rachel Montgomery." The room exploded. "What?" Margaret screamed. "That's impossible," Bryson shouted. "She's not even blood family." "She can't do this." Talon was on his feet. "We'll contest it." "On what grounds?" Ellis asked calmly. "Mrs. Stella Montgomery is of sound mind and body. She can leave her assets to whomever she chooses. She's a gold digger." Margaret pointed at me like I was something diseased. "She manipulated a sick old woman." "I'm sitting right here, Margaret," Stella said, "and I'm neither sick nor manipulated. I'm disgusted." Bryson turned to me, his face twisted with rage. "You planned this. You've been working on her for years." I found my voice. "I had no idea." "Liar!" Chloe screamed. "You scheming little—" "Enough!" Stella's cane hit the floor with a sharp crack. "Rachel has never asked me for a single thing. She visits me because she enjoys my company. She listens when I speak. She treats me like a human being instead of a bank account. This is fraud," Margaret said, her voice shaking. "I'll have you arrested." "For what? Leaving my own money to someone I care about?" Ellis cleared his throat. "There's one more thing. The post-nuptial agreement signed earlier this week is null and void, as it only pertained to Gilbert's assets, not Stella's." The colour drained from Bryson's face. "The post-nup is worthless," Ellis confirmed. "Rachel is now one of the wealthiest women in the state." I sat there in shock as chaos erupted around me. Margaret was screaming about lawyers and lawsuits. Bryson was pacing like a caged animal. Talon was making threats. Chloe was crying angry tears. Through it all, Stella sat calmly, watching her family tear itself apart. "You've destroyed us," Margaret said, her voice breaking. "Your own family." "No, Margaret," Stella replied. "You destroyed yourselves. I just made sure you couldn't take anyone else down with you." Ellis began packing up his papers. "The transfer of assets will begin immediately. Rachel, I'll need to meet with you next week to discuss the details." I nodded, still unable to speak. As the family filed out, hurling accusations and threats, Bryson stopped in front of me. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've started. Bryson, don't. Just don't." He walked away, leaving me alone with Stella and Ellis. "Well," Stella said, "that went about as expected." I looked at her, this tiny woman who had just handed me an empire and destroyed her own family in the process. "What have we done?" I whispered. "What needed to be done?" she replied. "The question is, what will you do now?" The first attack came Monday morning. I woke up to my phone buzzing non-stop with notifications. Someone had leaked the story to the press, and it was everywhere. "Gold digger inherits millions," screamed the headline on the local news website. The article painted me as a manipulative outsider who'd seduced a vulnerable old woman out of her fortune. My photo was everywhere. Old pictures from my teaching days, wedding photos, even a blurry shot of me leaving the grocery store last week. The comments section was brutal. "She looks like a snake. Poor family getting robbed by this nobody. Hope they contest the will and take her for everything. Bryson hadn't come home Friday night. Or Saturday. Or Sunday." I'd been alone in our house, jumping at every sound, wondering when the other shoe would drop. The doorbell rang at 8 a.m. sharp. I peered through the peephole and saw a man in an expensive suit holding a briefcase. "Mrs. Montgomery, I'm David Fletcher, attorney for the Montgomery family. I'd like to discuss a settlement." "I'm not interested." "I think you should hear what we're offering. It's quite generous." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. He pushed past me into the living room like he owned the place. "Beautiful home," he said, looking around. "Shame you'll have to give it up." "Excuse me? The house is in Bryson's name, as is the car in your driveway. The credit cards you've been using, all of it belongs to the Montgomery family." My stomach dropped. He was right. "We're prepared to offer you $5 million to renounce your claim to Stella's estate." $5 million? It's more than you ever dreamed of having, I'm sure. You could disappear, start over somewhere else. Live comfortably for the rest of your life. And if I refuse, his smile was cold, then we make your life very uncomfortable. We have resources, Mrs. Montgomery, connections. We can make sure you never work again, never have peace again. Get out. Think about it. You have 24 hours. After he left, I called Ellis. "They offered you money?" he asked. $5 million, and threatened me if I don't take it. Standard intimidation tactics. Don't worry, we expected this. "Ellis, I can't even access my own bank account. Bryson froze everything. I'll have new accounts set up for you by this afternoon. And Rachel, don't go anywhere alone. These people are desperate." That evening, Sagi showed up at my door. She looked exhausted, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Can I come in?" I hesitated. "Are you here to threaten me too?" "No, I'm here to apologize." I let her in, and we sat in the living room where her family's lawyer had threatened me that morning. "I had no idea," she said, "about any of it. The postnup, the will, the way they've been treating you. You were there Sunday night when they humiliated me. I know, and I should have said something. I should have stood up for you." She looked down at her hands. "I've always been the baby, you know, the one they don't take seriously, so I just stayed quiet." "Why are you here, Sage?" "Because they're planning something. Margaret called a family meeting for tomorrow night. She's hired investigators to dig up dirt on you. They're going to try to prove you manipulated grandmother." "I didn't manipulate anyone." "I know that. But they're desperate, and desperate people do terrible things." She stood up to leave, then turned back. "Rachel, be careful. Talon's been talking about taking care of the problem. I don't think he just means legally." After she left, I double-checked all the locks and closed all the curtains. I was making dinner when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello." Heavy breathing then. "You know they won't stop. Watch your back." The line went dead. I dropped the phone, my hands shaking. Someone was watching me. Someone wanted me scared. The next morning I found my car tires slashed. all 4 of them cut clean through. A note was tucked under the windshield wiper. "This is just the beginning." I called Ellis, who immediately sent a security team to the house. "You're staying at a hotel tonight," he said. "This is escalating too quickly. I won't be driven out of my own home." "It's not your home, Rachel. It's Bryson's. And right now, that makes it dangerous." That afternoon, Chloe called. "We need to talk," she said. "I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just coffee, public place. I have something you need to know." Against Ellis's advice, I met her at a busy cafe downtown. She was already there when I arrived, looking nervous. "Thank you for coming," she said. "What do you want, Chloe?" "I want to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" She leaned forward. "I know about the documents, the ones proving Talon and Margaret have been stealing from Grandmother." My blood went cold. "What about them?" "I have copies, bank records, forged signatures, everything. I've been collecting evidence for months." "Why?" "Because I knew this day would come. I knew Grandmother would eventually get fed up with their greed." She pulled a flash drive from her purse. "This contains everything, enough to send them both to prison. What do you want for it?" 10 million from your inheritance." I stared at her. "You're blackmailing me." "I'm offering you protection. With this evidence, they can't touch you. Without it," she shrugged. "Well, you've seen what they're capable of. And if I refuse, then I give this to Margaret, let her know exactly how much evidence exists against her. I'm sure she'll be very motivated to make it disappear." She slid the flash drive across the table. "You have until tomorrow night to decide. The family meeting is at 8. Come alone and bring your answer." As she walked away, I realized the game had changed completely. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was war. I arrived at the Montgomery estate at 7:55 p.m., clutching the flash drive in my sweaty palm. The security team Ellis had hired followed at a distance, parked just outside the gates. I'd insisted on going in alone, but I wasn't stupid. The front door was unlocked. I walked through the marble foyer, my footsteps echoing in the silence. Voices drifted from the study, angry, hushed whispers that stopped the moment I appeared in the doorway. They were all there. Margaret sat behind the desk like a queen holding court. Bryson stood beside her, his face hard as stone. Talon leaned against the bookshelf, arms crossed. Chloe perched on the edge of a chair, watching me with calculating eyes. "Rachel," Margaret said, her voice dripping false sweetness, "how good of you to join us." "Let's get this over with," I said. "Straight to business, I like that." Margaret stood up. "We have a proposition. I already heard your lawyer's offer. The answer is no." "This is different." Bryson stepped forward. "We are prepared to offer you 15 million. Cash. You sign over the inheritance and disappear." "And if I refuse?" "Then we destroy you," Talon said simply. "We have investigators digging into every aspect of your life. Your finances, your past relationships, your family. We'll find something." "There's nothing to find." "There's always something," Margaret said. "A tax discrepancy, a questionable friendship, a moment of poor judgment. We'll manufacture something if we have to." I looked at Chloe. "And what's your role in this?" She held up an identical flash drive. "Insurance policy, in case you get any ideas about fighting back." "You made copies?" "I made copies of copies. This evidence could disappear very easily. Computer crashes, fires, theft. These things happen." I pulled out my own flash drive and set it on the desk. "Then I guess we're at a standstill." The room went silent, Margaret's eyes fixed on the drive like it was a snake. "What is that?" she asked. "Everything. Bank records, forged documents, security footage of Talon breaking into Stella's office. 3 years' worth of theft and fraud." Talon's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I looked directly at him. "Should I mention the 50,000 you took from the charity fund last Christmas? Or the fake invoices you've been submitting to the business accounts?" "You little—" He started toward me, but Bryson grabbed his arm. How did you get this? Margaret demanded. Stella's been watching you for years. She knew exactly what you were doing. Impossible. She's a senile old woman. She's sharper than all of you combined. And she's been building a case against you since the day you married into this family. Margaret's mask finally slipped. The polished society matron disappeared, replaced by something ugly and desperate. You think you're so clever, she hissed. But you're nothing. A nobody from nowhere who got lucky. Maybe, but I'm a nobody with $47 million and enough evidence to put you in prison. We'll contest the will, Bryson said. Prove you manipulated her. With what evidence? The fact that I visited her? That I treated her with respect? That I never asked her for money? We'll say you isolated her from her family. I laughed. You isolated yourselves. When's the last time any of you had a real conversation with Stella? When's the last time you asked about her day, her health, her feelings? You only talked to her when you wanted something. She's our grandmother, Chloe shouted. She's your ATM. There's a difference. The door opened and Stella walked in. She moved slowly, leaning heavily on her cane, but her presence filled the room. Don't stop on my account, she said. This is fascinating. Grandmother? Margaret's voice turned sickeningly sweet. We were just discussing... I heard what you were discussing. I've been listening from the hallway for 10 minutes. Margaret's face crumpled. Mother, please, we can work this out. Family should stick together. Family. Stella's voice was ice. You mean the family that's been stealing from me for years? The family that forced my grandson's wife to sign away her rights? The family that's been plotting my death so you can get your hands on my money? We never... Don't lie to me, Margaret. I have security cameras throughout this house. I know about the meetings, the lawyers, the investigators. I know you hired someone to follow Rachel. She moved to stand beside me, her small frame somehow commanding the entire room. You want to contest my will? Go ahead. But first, explain to a judge why you've been forging my signature. Explain the missing money, the fake documents, the attempted fraud. You can't prove anything, Talon said, but his voice shook. Stella smiled. Ellis has been working with the FBI for 6 months. They have everything they need. The colour drained from his face. Here's what's going to happen, Stella continued. You're going to leave, all of you. You're going to stay away from Rachel, stay away from me, and pray that I don't decide to press charges. This is our home too, Bryson said desperately. No, it's not. It's my home, and you're no longer welcome in it. Margaret started crying ugly, desperate sobs. Please, Mother, we're family. You stopped being my family the day you decided I was worth more to you dead than alive. Stella turned to me. Rachel, would you please call security? I'd like these people removed from my property. As I reached for my phone, Bryson grabbed my wrist. This isn't over, he whispered. You think you've won, but you've just made enemies of the wrong people. I looked into his eyes, the eyes of the man I'd once loved, and saw nothing but hatred. Let go of me, I said quietly. He released my wrist and stepped back. I never loved you. I want you to know that. This whole marriage was just convenient. The words should have hurt. 3 years ago, they would have destroyed me. Now, they just made me tired. I know, I said. I've known for a long time. Security arrived within minutes. I watched from the window as the Montgomery family was escorted off their own property, their threats and pleas echoing across the manicured lawn. When the last car disappeared through the gate, Stella sank into her chair. Well, she said, that's that. I looked around the empty study, at the portraits of dead Montgomerys staring down at us with disapproval. What have we done? I whispered. What needed to be done? Stella replied. But Rachel... Yes, the hard part is just beginning. Stella died in her sleep on a Wednesday morning in October. I found her in her favourite chair in the sunroom, a book open in her lap, looking peaceful for the first time in months. The housekeeper called 911, but we both knew it was too late. The funeral was small. Just me, Ellis, a few business associates, and, surprisingly, Sage. She sat in the back row, crying quietly into a tissue. She was the only one who ever really saw me, Sage said afterward as we stood by the grave. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner. You stood up when it mattered. She hugged me, and I realised she was the only Montgomery I'd miss. The headlines started the next day. Montgomery matriarch dies, leaves fortune to daughter-in-law. The reporters camped outside the estate gates, shouting questions whenever I drove past. But there were other headlines too. Montgomery family under FBI investigation. Fraud charges filed against prominent family members. Talon was arrested first, led away in handcuffs from his downtown office. The news footage showed him trying to hide his face with a briefcase. Margaret followed 2 days later, her mugshot making the front page of every newspaper in the state. Bryson wasn't charged. He'd been weak and manipulated, but not criminal. Still, his law practice collapsed overnight. No one wanted to hire a lawyer whose family was under federal investigation. I was in Ellis's office signing papers to establish the Stella Montgomery Foundation when his secretary knocked on the door. Mrs. Montgomery, there's a woman here to see you, says she's your sister-in-law. Chloe walked in looking nothing like the polished socialite I'd known. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled. She'd lost weight. I need to talk to you, she said. Ellis started to leave, but I stopped him. Stay. Whatever she has to say, she can say it in front of my lawyer. Chloe sat down heavily. I'm broke. The FBI froze all my accounts. They think I was involved in the fraud. Were you? No, I knew about it and didn't stop it. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I need help, Rachel. I have nowhere else to go. What about your trust fund? Gone. Talon convinced me to invest it in one of his schemes. It was all fake companies and shell accounts. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception. All I saw was desperation. What do you want from me? A job. A chance to start over. I'll do anything. Clean houses, wait tables, whatever. Why should I help you? You tried to blackmail me. Because... She started crying. Because I'm sorry, because I was scared and stupid and I let my family turn me into someone I hate. Ellis cleared his throat. The foundation will need administrative staff, entry-level positions. I looked at him, surprised. Everyone deserves a second chance, he said quietly. Minimum wage, I told Chloe. No special treatment. You'll work for everything you get. Thank you, she whispered. I won't let you down. The foundation launched on Stella's birthday. We focused on education, scholarships for kids from low-income families, funding for public schools, literacy programs. Everything Stella would have loved. I was reviewing grant applications in my new office when Ellis knocked on the door. There's someone here to see you. Bryson walked in and I barely recognised him. He'd lost weight, his expensive suits replaced by jeans and a wrinkled shirt. His hair needed cutting. Hello, Rachel. What do you want? To apologise and to ask for a divorce. I set down my pen. I thought you'd already filed. I couldn't afford a lawyer. Turns out when your family's assets are frozen and your practice collapses, money gets tight fast. So, you want me to pay for our divorce? He flinched. I know how that sounds. It sounds like you're still trying to use me. Maybe I am. He sat down across from my desk. But I also wanted to tell you something. That night at the estate, when I said I never loved you, that was a lie. I felt nothing. No pain, no relief, no satisfaction. Just emptiness. I did love you, Rachel. In the beginning, but my family, they poisoned everything. They made me believe you were the enemy. I was never your enemy, Bryson. I was your wife. I know that now, when it's too late. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a check. This should cover your legal fees. He stared at the amount. This is too much. Consider it severance pay for 3 years of marriage. He took the check with shaking hands. What happens now? Now you figure out who you are without your family's money, without their influence. Maybe you'll like the person you find. And us? There is no us. There hasn't been for a long time. He nodded and stood up. At the door he turned back. For what it's worth, I think Grandmother chose the right person. You'll do good things with her money. I already am. After he left, I walked to the window overlooking the city. Down below, people hurried along the sidewalks, living their lives, chasing their dreams. Some of them would apply for our scholarships. Some of their children would benefit from our programs. Stella had given me more than money. She'd given me purpose. My phone buzzed with a text from Sage. Saw the foundation announcement. Grandmother would be proud. She was right. Stella would be proud. The Montgomerys had spent generations accumulating wealth, hoarding it, using it as a weapon against each other. But money was just a tool. What mattered was how you used it. I thought about the scared teacher who'd married into this family, desperate to belong somewhere. She'd gotten her revenge, but more importantly, she'd found her power. And she was just getting started.